Hey guys, we're going to be doing saving for retirement, one of the most interesting topics you can do. And we're going to get into individual retirement accounts, 401ks, and some high yield savings accounts too. I think Audie will start us off.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Adi, and these are the topics we're going to be covering today. So we're covering traditional 401k, traditional IRA, Roth IRA, Roth 401k, savings account, and government bonds.
So the literal definition of a 401k is a feature of a qualified profit sharing plan that allows employees to contribute a portion of their wages to individual accounts. But what exactly does this mean? A traditional 401k is a company sponsored plan, meaning that it is a benefit offered to employees by their employer at low or no cost. Ted Benna, the guy in the corner, is widely regarded as the father of the 401k. To get a 401k, the only requirement is you have to be part of a company that offers one. Because of this, employees will usually match some percent of the same amount that you contribute. So let's say that you contribute $1. Usually they'll also contribute 50 cents per dollar that you contribute. And this usually goes up to 6% of your salaries. You should definitely take advantage of this and go for a company that matches a good amount of your contribution, because the more they match, the more free money you're pretty much getting. When moving jobs, you can also bring your 401k with you and you will not lose the money. With your 401k, some companies also give you options to buy funds with your 401ks, while some will even let you buy individual stocks. However, most do not let you buy anything risky, such as options. There are four types of funds you can usually purchase, which are conservative, value, balanced, and aggressive growth. And these go from safest to the highest chance for growth, but also the highest chance for loss. There are also target date funds, which work to attempt to maximize your 401k by the time you expect to retire. The choice of investment is yours, but keep in mind how much money you would currently have in your 401k and how much you're willing to lose. Since, for example, when you're only 20, there's a good chance that you would like to go for something more aggressive because you don't have much to lose. But if you're almost about to retire, you probably want to keep it in a safer fund. Um, 401ks are also tax deferred, meaning that you do not pay the taxes for the money until you withdraw the money. I have a question for you in the chat. Would you rather pay your taxes when you put money in your account or later when you postpone it to a later time? Yeah, most people would choose when you put money because if you pay it later, then there's a good chance that you'll probably be earning more money, which means you'll be in a higher tax bracket and you'll actually pay more money on it, which is one of the downsides of a 401k. You can contribute as much money as you want to a 401k, but this is up to the limit set by the IRS. You can contribute up to 19,500 per year if you're under 50, or 26,000 per year if you're over 50. And employers can contribute up to 58,000 per year under 50 and 64,500 per year 50 and up. Or they will match how much ever you add, whichever is less. You can also withdraw money whenever you want, but if you're under 59 and a half years old, then you'll have a 10% tax on top of it, on top of any other taxes that you're paying. However, some certain criteria, such as being permanently disabled, means that you can just withdraw the money whenever you want without penalty. If you make a big purchase like buy a house or you have to go pay for college, then you can also take a loan from your 401k. To conclude, benefits of a 401k include the high contribution limit, the company matching, the investments offered, and the fact that it is tax deferred. But the cons include that you cannot withdraw the money easily before retirement and that you need to monitor and manage your plan on your own because you often won't get much guidance.
So the Roth 401k, Rathul did a really good job explaining the traditional 401k and like the difference between when you would want to pay the tax now versus in the future. The Roth 401k is essentially the exact same thing as the traditional 401k. You would get it by going to your employer, and your employer would show you like the different options that the company has, and you could choose. Some companies offer the Roth 401k, and some companies would offer the traditional 401k. Essentially, the difference between the two of them is just that the traditional, you pay taxes right now, and you put in the money into the account, and then when you withdraw, you don't have to pay taxes. With the Roth 401k, you would pay right now, and then, or sorry, with the Roth 401k, you pay right now, and you don't have to pay when you withdraw. But it's the opposite with the traditional, where you don't pay right now, and then it's called tax deferral, which Rasul covered, where when you withdraw the money, then you would have to pay the taxes, which is really bad if you're gonna be making more money in the future, especially because you're gonna be in a higher tax bracket. But other than that, the Roth 401k is probably the way to go, just because people usually make more money the longer they stay in their career.
So next up is the Roth Individual Retirement Account, which is where you pay taxes on deposit, which leaves your withdrawals past 59 and a half years of age to be tax-free. Additionally, the Roth IRA does not include any required minimum distributions, which means you are not forced to withdraw money at a certain age, making it a very stable retirement plan since you'll be covering most of the expenses upfront, just like the 401k. And as for eligibility, married couples have to make less than 196,000 in order to qualify, while single people have to make less than 124,000 annually. There's also an option for single people to qualify for partial contributions, which just means that their maximum contribution decreases linearly with their income, increasing to compensate for the fact that they're the only ones earning money. So all in all, the Roth IRA plan is meant for people who face higher taxes in later stages of their career and can't afford to not pay upfront because they're playing in a volatile industry. So that's like young professionals out of college that still don't have like a pinpointed long-term and stable career, but they're still able to pay upfront to deposit into an IRA. The traditional IRA is practically the same as the Roth IRA, except instead of paying taxes at deposit, you have to pay at withdrawal. All this means is that even though you won't have to pay immediately, you have to pay post-tax at a higher price since tax usually increases over time. You can see with the diagram here that the two savings accounts are nearly identical. It's just that the Roth IRA was created as a secondary option for people who are in that awkward tax bracket where they could afford upfront but not sure if they could afford later.
All right. So basically, what a high yield savings account, or for short, a savings account, is basically a bank account that pays more than 20 times the national average of interest. So that means that you can get a very significant amount of money in return, um, uh, since that you put this money in this account. So usually you use this along with a checking account. So that's like where you withdraw some money from. There are obviously some since it's so good that you have such a high uh, uh, return on this, is obviously some downsides, such as you won't have that many other features along with um, so let's say that if you have a bank that offers these high yield savings account, you probably won't have so many other features that'll go along with it. But this is not that big of a deal in modern times because due to most people's online presence, it's very easy to transfer and connect accounts from different banks together. And so, as I just said, you'll probably have to open a checking account in another institution. And also, there's another limit with withdrawals, that you can only have 6 withdrawals per month, according to law. So, and there's a few ways that people use not checking accounts. They use saving accounts. So obviously, they use it to save up for a big purchase like a vacation or a car, or you can put it in for a rainy day fund in case you lose your job, or maybe you went in a debt for some reason. You can probably if you keep consistently putting money into your um, savings account, you will be able to get yourself out of that quickly. And also, as I said before, use this in conjunction with a checking account, because the extra cash left over from the checking account often goes into your savings account to be used later. And this is just a strategy, which isn't exactly a way to use it, but you can make multiple checking accounts to save up for specific items if you want to like organize it that way. And obviously, when you're gonna make when you open a checking account, you have to consider a few factors in order to get the best value of return, and so you can earn the most money as possible. So you have to consider the rates, the initial deposit requirement, the minimum balance, extra fees, connection to other banks, and easy access and deposit. So allow me to explain. So the rates is basically how much return you get, and obviously this is important because you want to get as much money back as you can. And initial deposit requirement means that you have to have you need to put at least like some amount of money in order to start the account. And this is not that big of a deal if you're like more wealthy, but if you're a little tight on money, it might be very important to you because you don't have enough money to put all in one go into that account. And minimum balance means that you always have to have like this amount of money in your account at all times. So that's also another thing that might be a problem if you aren't so wealthy. And then we have some extra fees that you have to consider, like some transaction fees or like, excuse me, some opening fees. So those are just some, that's not too big of a deal, but it's a minor thing that you should consider. And also, as I said before, you should think about connection to other banks because it's probably going to be very inconvenient for you if you don't use a savings account that can easily connect to a checking account or any of your other bank accounts. And lastly, you have to consider easy access and deposit because you want to make sure that your life is as easy as possible. So you don't want such a headache when you're just trying to simply just withdraw money from your account. So yeah.
So with government bonds, that's the last like way to say that we're going to be covering today. It's relatively the most stable and the most liquid asset that you can buy, and especially for a long-term goal like retirement, it would be really helpful just because how government bonds work or how they used to work was that you would have like a set period of time where like there's 10 years or like a 20-year bond, or you can buy a 30-year bond where the document that the government gives you states that this bond is going to grow at 2% a year, or it's going to grow at 3% a year. And these annual returns are super consistent. And usually they are either on the pace of inflation, or they're going to be a little bit below the pace of inflation. And even though that's the case, it's still better than just leaving your money in a regular checking account where it's not going to be growing at all. So how most people buy government bonds is they go to the National Stock Exchange, and then of course they buy it through their mobile application, and you can buy them directly from the government, or you can buy them on what's more commonly you would buy them is in the secondary bond market. And that way you don't have to hold on to the bond for the complete 10-year term or 20 years, or however long the length of the bond is. You don't have to hold on to it for that long, just because you know that you can always sell it on the secondary bond market if you're really tight on cash or if you need the money immediately. And of course, disadvantages is that even though it's such a stable investment, it is a really low interest rate that you're earning. So you could make way more money on the stock market. But of course, if you have a family, or if you need the money immediately, then bonds are always a good way to go. And then usually, of course, the longer the bond is, the returns usually tend to be lower. But again, this fluctuates a lot just because with inflation, the rate of the bond will really fluctuate year over year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Gordon. I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you talk about all of these different kinds of like retirement, I guess strategies, right?
Hmm.
So I guess my question is, you also talked about like bonds, specifically, I think with your college presentation. Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we
Okay.
did cover it. Yeah,
Okay. Great. So would now be a good time to be investing in bonds in this current economy?
that's a good question. So right now, I would say that the stock market is really unpredictable. We have all these tech giants just climbing, and they seem to have no end in sight where this growth is going to stop. But at the same time, we've seen this before. We've seen this in the early 2000s dot-com bubble. We've seen this in 2008 and 2009, where we had the recession. So I would say that for me, if it were up to me, I would probably invest in bonds over investing in the market right now. And that just depends on your own financial situation. For someone who's looking to go to college, someone who's in high school right now, or someone who's getting ready for retirement, bonds are probably going to be the way to go.
Yeah, I also think it's a pretty complex issue, right? Because the stock market's so volatile. I think a lot of people are flocking towards more stabler securities like bonds. If your parents are like mine, they probably already own a lot of bonds, well, and stocks, but like bonds because you gotta have to pay for college somehow. And so if they do have that, they probably just like hang on for a while, right? Because it's like a 20-year bond or whatever. So it's probably a very good backup to always have. And like Matt said and Gordon said, you should always start saving for retirement really early on. Like honestly, when you go to college, when you get your first job, you should already start having your plan. Okay.